All right, welcome into the Idaho Athletics Weekly Press Conference. This week we're going to be joined by men's basketball head coach Alex Pribble, as well as women's basketball head coach Arthur Moreira. We're going to start with Coach Moreira. Quick wrap up from last week. Idaho Swim and Dive wrapped up its regular season. They'll be competing in the MPSF Championship. It's going to be held in Texas on in between February 25th and 28th. Idaho women's tennis split its week last week, picking up a big win against Pacific and then dropping a match to Nevada. Men's tennis picked up a 6-1 win over Lewis and Clark in the P1FCU Kibbe Dome, and Idaho Track and Field competed in the Inland Northwest Invitational in Spokane last week. Upcoming week, there's lots going on. Spring sports in Idaho, busy time in Moscow. So the upcoming week, we've got Track and Field hosting the Idaho Team Challenge on Friday, February 6th in the P1FCU Kibbe Dome. Events start at 1 o'clock p.m. Idaho women's tennis is on the road. They're going to be in Laramie, Wyoming, where they're going to play Colorado State on Friday, and then they'll play Wyoming on Sunday. Men's tennis is going to be competing in Boise, Idaho. Saturday, they're going to be competing at 10 a.m. first against Linfield, and then Saturday as well at 6 p.m. against Boise State. So Idaho women's hoops coming off a really big week last week, sweeping both of its games, picking up a big win on Thursday in the Big Sky Conference Game of the Week against third place Northern Colorado. And then picking up another win on Saturday here in ICCU Arena against Northern Arizona. This week, huge week ahead for Idaho women's hoops. The Vandals off to their best start in a season since 1984-85 when the Vandals went 20-1. Currently, they're 17-5, 8-1 in conference play. Thursday is a battle for first place here in ICCU Arena against Montana State, who's currently in first place. That game takes place at 6 p.m. And then on Saturday against Montana here in ICCU at 2 p.m. So we'll hear from Coach Moreira here. He'll start off with an opening statement, and then we'll open up for questions after that.
All right. First of all, I just want to thank our fans for coming out on Saturday. It was really fun for us to look at the student section and see a lot of people there. I want to give a huge shout out to Tridel for coming through. I mean, they hosted us at their house the night before the game, and then they came and supported it. It just gave us a lot of good energy. You know, I feel like a game like that, it was one of our best games of the season, I thought, on both ends of the floor, and I think a lot of that have to do with how many fans we had in the student section. So I hope to see everybody there again this week. A huge week for us. Like Austin said, we won the Big Sky Game of the Week against Northern Colorado. It was a big matchup. We're kind of battling for second place, and with the win, we got to separate ourselves a little bit. I thought our girls executed great in that game. You know, completely different game than Saturday. It was a grind battle. You know, we grinded that one out. We defended really, really well. We rebounded the ball well. We were able to keep them out of the paint, which is something they do really well. And then we flipped on Saturday, and we had a great offensive performance. So I think this just shows how this team can win in different ways. We keep getting better. We keep improving, and we can adjust to any opponent we play. And now, obviously, we have a big week ahead of us. Play Montana State on Thursday, battle for the first place in the Big Sky tournament and for the Big Sky seeding. And then we got Montana on Saturday. So hopefully we get to see all those fans there again this weekend.
You mentioned that your team has been learning in the last few weeks. Of course, you're now on a 6-game winning streak. The last game you lost comes against the team you're playing here Thursday night. What have you and your team learned in the last 3 weeks that has gotten you not only 6 wins, but also given you this opportunity to try and grab top spots just as you start into your second lap around the Big Sky?
Yeah, I think we learned that all the details matter. You know, you have to try to do everything to almost excellent. You know, you have to rebound really well every night. You have to defend well every night. You have to pay attention to the scout and execute a game plan. The Big Sky is such a good league that if you kind of let one thing slide, then it could go wrong, you know. And I felt like throughout the season we would either play really well offensively, but then our defense would be lacking. We're rebounding the ball really well, but then we weren't shooting the ball very well. So I feel like now we do a lot of things that allows to put us in position to win games. If we're not shooting well, most of the time we are rebounding well and we are defending well. Or if we're not rebounding well, we are scoring well, we are defending well. So I feel like we're focused on trying to do the most things positive, and then if there's one that maybe it's not our night, all the other ones can carry and give you a chance to win.
So then you come into this big matchup coming up here Thursday. I think it's fair to say it's the biggest game of your season, even though every game is big.
Right.
Coach things.
Right.
Coming into this game, what do you look at from the first game and go, that absolutely has to be better, even degrees better, in order for your team to end up with a season split against the very good Bobcats?
Yeah, everything. We got to be better at everything. It's plain and simple. That game, they beat us everywhere. We got out coached. They played harder than we did. They shot the ball better. They scored better. They defended better. They are a great program. I think Coach Benford runs the standard. That's the standard of the conference. That program, everybody's chasing it. We're in a position where we can compete with them now. I think that was a great learning experience for us. We saw how hard it is to play there, how hard it is to play against Montana State type of pressure. We have a decent amount of returners, but really only Hope got to play a lot of minutes against them last year. So for everybody, it was their first experience playing that type of pressure, that type of defense. And they're even harder to play on a one-day prep. On a Saturday game, you play Thursday, now you only have Friday to practice, and it's impossible to simulate. They're so good at what they do that there's no way our coaching staff on the road can put their jerseys on and simulate Montana State. So I think we'll be better prepared this game. But again, they're number one for a reason. They won the conference last year. They're preseason number one, and they deserve the credit. So it's up to us to go out there and take it from them now.
She's not the only player, but Taylee Chirrick's got to be the focus for you and your crew. Freshman last year, incredible defender and rebounder. It seemed like the only thing she was missing was scoring. Well, she's figured that out.
She has.
So she's an all-around one of the best players in the Big Sky Conference, and she wreaked havoc, especially defensively, on your crew a few weeks ago. How do you limit or try to work around somebody like Chirrick, who's making a strong case to be the MVP in the league this year?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about how you need to try to do the most things positive to win games, and I feel like she just impacts the game so many different ways. She's one of those players that she's been shooting the ball really well this year, but if her shot's not going in, she generates a lot of her offense from her defense. So she gets a lot of layups, a lot of steals, a lot of offensive rebounds, So she's just hard to stop because you might do a great job guarding her in the half court and not giving open up shots or open jump shots or open lanes to the basket, but she's still going to score because she's going to create some turnovers, or she's going to go and rip the ball from your hands when you get an offensive rebound. So I think she's really hard to stop. We definitely have to limit her touches, and we have to do a good job of making her uncomfortable, putting her in positions that she may not be the most efficient in. And I thought we did a good job with that in the last few games. When we're preparing for Anaya Hall, for Tatum West, for Naomi White, I felt like we were able to kind of take them out of their spots, and that's kind of what we have to do with Chirrick.
And so this Montana State team also just comes in, they had that blip in Pocatello, and Idaho State got them. Otherwise, they've won every game since, including their game Saturday, 91-40.
Yeah.
They were 31-1 at the end of the first quarter. Obviously, your team, they read the notes.
Right.
They see the scores around the league. They watch the other games.
Right.
Which I don't know if everybody does that or not, but your crew, they're avid fans of Big Sky
No doubt.
basketball as well as being parts of it. So then, looking at Montana State, what is it that you have to do? Is taking care of the ball your primary concern Thursday?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I saw a graphic that the Big Sky posted today. I think they were 57-7, right, in the first quarter, the last two games combined, or 57-7, something like that. I mean, they're so good at what they do. And not only taking care of the ball, but they just make you uncomfortable. So even when you do break the press, you're taking rush shots, you're trying to attack them as fast as you can, and you're just never comfortable out there running offense with them. Luckily, that's a style that we play, right? I thought in the first game we would look better because that's how we practice. But we should be comfortable in making those decisions and playing fast and playing up and down. You break a press, you're attacking. Now it's all about the decision making. I mean, they're the type of team that if you delay 1 second your read, they're going to recover, and there's going to be a body in front of you. So you have to take advantage. And watching the Idaho State game, I thought they did a great job with that. They just kept attacking them. They took it to them. They still turned the ball over 27 times, right? And they were able to come out with the win because of how aggressive they are. So the worst thing you can do against a team like that is just be on your toes, be on your heels, and then allow them to dictate the pace the game is going to be played and the aggressiveness. So I think we'll be better prepared this time. And like I said, we've been practicing for it ever since we lost that game.
And let's then go to Saturday, not giving the Lady Grizz short shrift. It's been a tougher year for them, for sure. I'm not sure what Mac Koenig's status is, their star guard, but they were hurting without her, and Vandals got to see her pretty much first game after that. What have you seen from the Lady Grizz since? Obviously, you look at that roster and go, well, they can hit threes, and if they do, you can be in trouble.
Yeah.
But you guys handled them pretty decently the first time.
Yeah, they're a different team now. You know, that was the first game without Koenig. Usually when you have a big piece like that go down, it takes a couple games to get used to it. And we saw that. I mean, after us, Eastern, and the Montana State game, they won 4 in a row. You know, and there was a lot of people that stepped up, and now Koenig was back their last game against Sac State. I think they're a different team. They're way better than when we played them out there. They went through some adversity and bounced back. It's kind of similar to last year, right? They went through some adversity mid-season, mid-conference season, and then they were playing their best basketball in March. I mean, they're always dangerous. Like I said, they can shoot the ball really, really well. They beat Idaho State right after Idaho State beat Montana State, right on 2 days later, and they shot almost 50% from 3. So we can't take them lightly at all. I think talent-wise, they're one of the most talented teams in the league. So we're going to have to defend. We're going to have to guard the three-point line well, and then use our advantage that we do have a big size advantage inside and on the rebounding side of things.
And you certainly used that the first time out.
So you're halfway through conference play. You played every single team now at least once. Well, once exactly. What do you think you've learned about your team specifically at this point in the season? Now that you've kind of reached kind of a mile marker in the year?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that we can win in different ways. You know, I felt like last year, if we weren't shooting the ball well, it was going to be very challenging to win games. We had to rely on our defense and hold people to 50 or 60 points. I feel like we do so many different things well this year that if we do have an off shooting night, like we did against Sac State or even Northern Colorado, we're still going to be in the game because of our rebounding, because of our defense, you know, our pace. So this team just keeps getting better. Last year, we kind of maxed out in January, I thought. And every week or every game that we play, I feel like we're still getting better. We're still improving. People are getting more comfortable. We finally have some consistency. We had a few injuries here and there. You know, Dad missed a few games of concussion, and Mary got hurt. So I feel like now we're kind of finding a groove with the lineup. So I think that plays a role too. You know, people are getting healthy and they're getting used to play with each other.
So you shouted out Try Belt for coming,
yeah.
But also, I mean, there were a lot more people that showed up than just Try Belt. Over
yeah.
1,000 people in the crowd.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Second biggest attendance of the year. What does that do for your team as far as energy, performance? And what do you have to say to fans who might be thinking about coming out to the games this week?
Yeah, I mean, I got to watch Coach Pribble's teams play at home, and it looks awesome, you know. So our girls are like, man, I hope we have some fans, and we did this Saturday. It's just a different energy. You know, I feel like we have the best arena in the country. When we have the best and most passionate fans in the conference, I mean, it's just a different environment to play in. And I don't know how you'd not get up to come to a Thursday game when you're battling for first place, right? It's the 2 top teams in the conference. We're 8-1, they're 9-1. They're half a game ahead of us. Winner is going to be first place at the end of that game on Thursday night. We play a really fun style. We play fast. I mean, there's no way you don't have fun watching us play, right? So we had the second best crowd of the season on Saturday. Let's make the best crowd of the season on Thursday. You know, that's the perfect game to do it.
Thanks, Coach.
All right. Thank you, guys.
All right, next we're going to hear from men's basketball head coach Alex Pribble. Last week, the Vandals went on the road, had a tough loss at Northern Colorado, gets a really talented Northern Colorado team, and then a big bounce-back win in a tough environment on the road at Northern Arizona. And then this week on Thursday, the Vandals going to be facing Montana State. That game's going to take place at 7 p.m. Pacific time. And then on Saturday at Montana, the game will take place at 4 p.m. Pacific time. Both those games can be seen on ESPN+, and they can be heard on Vandal Athletics Radio Network with Dennis Patchen on the call. So we'll hear from Coach Pribble. He'll have an opening statement, and we'll open up for questions after that.
All right. Thank you, Austin. Happy to be back home. Some chaos with our travel, so nice to be well-rested and sleep in our own bed here today. Listen, I'm going to talk about our team and our road trip, but I want to start off here with a message to the vandalizers. Students, Idaho student body, you guys are incredible. What you guys have done for our men's program this year, bringing the energy, bringing the juice, you know how grateful I am. This week, okay, we need you to show up for this women's team. Some of my best memories in college was following our championship teams and getting to know the students and rooting for them. We still talk about it to this day, what it means to win a championship and to follow your friends who are competing for championships. And vandalizers, you have a special opportunity here this Thursday, okay? What Coach Arthur and this women's team is doing is incredibly special. Come out to the game on Thursday. The 2 number 1 teams going head-to-head. Help them take this thing over the top and compete for a championship. It's rare that a program can truly compete for a ring, compete for a banner to hang up here in ICC Arena, and that's what these women are doing right now. So please show up, just bring that support. And I'll even put one other thing on the table here. If you, for the fraternities and sororities that are out here, if you bring your chapter to campus and you take a picture of yourself with 20 of the people from your chapter and post it on social media, I will bring, with my coaches and my players, we will bring pizzas over to your house for your next chapter meeting on Monday. Come to the game, 20 people, take a picture, put it on social media. We'll come by your chapter meetings on Monday and bring some pizzas to thank you for what you're doing for Idaho Athletics. It's a big game. Let's help these ladies compete for a championship. That's the first thing. Second thing, really proud of our guys. I thought we went on the road and learned some very important things. We've been kind of up and down on the road this year, but we've been kind of forging our identity with our resilience and our response. And after a tough second half defensively against Northern Colorado, our guys responded with their best defensive performance of the year on the road at Northern Arizona. So we're taking steps in the right direction. Everything for us continues to be about improving and getting better and finding ways to win games differently, even when our shots aren't falling. I thought we did a great job at Northern Arizona taking a step in the right direction. So proud of our guys. It's an uphill battle, but I think we're continuing to make strides, and big week ahead on the road against Montana State. Questions?
Coach, undoubtedly one of the biggest stars of the weekend was Isaiah Brickner coming off the bench and dropping 30 on Northern Arizona. This is the second time he's had a performance like that this year. Coming off the bench, winning Conference Player of the Week after his efforts against North Dakota and SDSU.
Yeah.
Just what does it mean for a coach? From your perspective, you can have a guy like that who is so team oriented, but when he's called upon, can make that much of an impact.
Yeah, I thought it was just a special performance from Isaiah this week. He's a great young man. He's always team first, and Isaiah has a tendency to just try to go out there and be super aggressive. But what was different about his performance this time is he was very purposeful with everything he did, really on both ends. So he took great shots, he took the right shots, and that led to not only a 31-point outbreak, but an efficient performance. And when Isaiah is not only scoring, but he's scoring efficiently, our team is very good. So great performance from Isaiah. Really helped us kind of take steps forward as a team. I thought he battled defensively as well. So he was special. And I thought as a whole, as a group, we really had a more purposeful performance this week.
23 points, your defensive effort in the first half at Northern Arizona, which can be a tough place to play, merely because of the altitude. What changed? It was only 36 hours or so in between that, and I believe it was a 55-point second half in Taylee on Thursday.
Yeah, a couple things. The first is that we had some important team meetings. We sat down collectively as a group, watched some of the film, and then we encouraged the guys to meet on their own. And they had kind of a players-only team meeting when we were in Phoenix, just kind of being real with each other, being honest with each other. And we're at the point in the season right now where the accountability, the standard needs to be very high, and they talk to each other about that. And they came out of the gates with just an inspired effort. This is a team that can win games with their defense this year. We're, the fourth-ranked defensive efficiency team in the conference right now, which isn't elite, but it is a much better defense than we've been in the past. We're taking steps forward. And I thought they just responded great. So Northern Arizona is a good team. They're coming off a huge win against Eastern Washington. They blew them out pretty good, and they beat Northern Colorado right before that. So to be able to respond the way we did defensively, locking on the scouting report, make things difficult for them, was just a big step forward for us. Now there's still plenty of areas to improve. I thought our transition defense needs some work. Some of our ball screen coverages in the second half, left some room to be desired. But at the end of the day, we're getting better, and that's the important thing.
That second half as well, and you mentioned it in your opening statement, you were in a situation that your team has put itself in several times this year, and maybe even in times in your program, where you got out to a great start.
Yep.
You're up 24 at halftime. And then you found yourself many times in a spot where you're up 24 at halftime or something like it, and then it's a two-possession game late,
Right.
and your team is in all sorts of stress. Northern Arizona came in, she got it to 14 or so in the second half, and then it seemed as though you guys went through a series of deliberate possessions where you score and you had 2 threes in a row that pushed it back to 20, and as well, even if you weren't scoring, you were taking 27 seconds off the shot clock.
Yeah.
That seems like major growth in closing out a game.
Yeah, it's important. I'm trying to figure out how to win these games where we've got a lead, we can keep our foot on the gas, but also be smart. Time, score, flow is what we talk about. And I thought our guys did a very good job of executing, earning great shots. And then even when those shots weren't falling, we really dug in defensively. And our defense is what allowed us to kind of keep that gap. So, yeah, definitely growth. Yep.
So now you come into this series, Montana State, Montana. You get to do this road trip, first Bozeman and then Missoula. Matt Logi's crew having a very good year in Bozeman. That's your game Thursday night. You got a second look at them. It was a close game. I believe you guys won the first game, did you not?
We did.
Okay.
Yep.
So road obviously is a little more difficult, but how do you get a sweep of the Bobcats?
Yeah, well, this was an interesting week for us the first time around. If you remember back to it,
Two
both
of the same
games,
games.
they were. Both games, we dug ourselves deep holes early in the game and then fought back tooth and nail against Montana, had a chance to tie it in the last minute of the game, and then Montana State were able to come all the way back. So there were some important lessons that we learned. Starts with our defense. We can't allow teams to get comfortable early in the game. You got to credit them. I think there were some scout adjustments we made. Guys like Chris Hodges, who weren't scoring the ball great at the time, really came out and performed well. Same thing with Aguino from Montana. Some guys that weren't priorities in their on their team at the time came out of the gates and played very well, which helped them build these big leads. But our guys were resilient. They played tough to bring the games back, and I thought we played very well in the second half against Montana State. Learned some important lessons, and we just need to carry that forward into this week. Obviously, on the road, you got to defend, and so we're going to have to find ways to defend and rebound consistently. Jed Miller is playing as well as anybody in the conference at Montana State, so we're going to have to do a job on him. And then it's going to come down to the possessions. If we can win the rebounding game, we can take care of the basketball, that's going to be a big deal for us.
Well, if memory serves, you and Matt Logie have coached against each other at multiple levels. Like, you guys have known each other a while, if memory serves.
It's more Ryan Looney,
Yeah.
which is similar. Matt Logie has taken a similar path. He was at Whitworth, and then was at Point Loma. We didn't cross a ton, but I have tremendous respect for Matt Logie. He's a guy who is very smart, has a great staff around him, and has had success everywhere he's been, and that's not easy to do. A guy that's just won at a high level everywhere he's been. So we know it's going to be a challenge. We know he's going to make some good adjustments with his team, and we're going to have to be prepared to in-game respond the right way.
Memory didn't serve there. But your time, second or third year now that you faced him here,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to push this too far, obviously. Does it become more fun over the years coaching against the same coach, that you guys have these little wrinkles and you guys kind of know each other's weak spots?
Yeah, I think there's some similarities in terms of the way we want to run our programs. I think, Matt Logie always has a couple things up his sleeve in terms of out of timeouts and execution, so we need to find ways to kind of take them out of rhythm. And these guys always play hard. They're always a tight group that kind of get better at the end of the year. I thought year one for him and for me, they were a group that were struggling a little bit early, and then he found a way to get them all the way to the NCAA tournament. So we've looked at that mold a little bit on how they kind of got hot late, and that takes a good coach and good culture to be able to do what he did in year one over there. So, obviously Montana State is a great program. Winning the football national championship they've got a lot of tradition over there, and it's a big program, but we got to find a way for us to get Idaho basketball to that level. And I think when you have opportunities to play a Montana State or a Montana on the road, that's what it is. It's an opportunity. It's a challenge to show that Idaho basketball is on par with those schools, if not exceeding them. That's the direction we want to go. And so this is a big opportunity for us.
Not only Thursday, but also Saturday, because you get to go to Montana and take on Travis Secure and the Grizzlies. Obviously, as you mentioned, that a game where you started out behind. You actually, I think, were up 90 seconds or so to go, and then they were able to come back and take it. Monty Williams is a big factor of that. Dahlberg Arena is a very difficult place to play. Not that Rick Breeden isn't over in Bozeman.
Yeah.
What does Montana look like for you and your crew a second go?
Yeah, they've kind of been the top dogs here. Like for the time that I've been in the conference, Montana just kind of has this, this edge about them where we need to find a way to be the more physical team, because they come in and just try to out-tough you, out-physical you, and we can't allow that to happen, especially on the road. I thought there were stretches in that Montana game where we did a really good job kind of going punch for punch with them, right, head-to-head with them, and not backing down. We did a good job on the glass for the majority of that game. But at the end of the day, Monty Williams really took it to us in the second half. He got to the foul line way too much. We're going to have to be a more disciplined ball club on that end of the court and make the right adjustments. But Coach DeCure is always going to have his guys playing extremely hard, extremely physical, and so we're going to have to be ready for that fight.
On that note, you've talked a lot about how the parity in the Big Sky is bigger than ever, and especially going into these matchups and the rest of the season. Now you're not going to see anybody you haven't seen. So you have, and now Coach Logie and Coach DeCure are both going to be telling their guys no lead is safe, because we were down pretty tremendously. Both teams had a lead later on. So how do you approach the second matchup of the season without giving too much away, obviously, compared to how you look at it first time?
Yeah, our process stays the same. Obviously now we have our film and our adjustments from game one, but our process of our scouting reports, our assistant coaches do a great job preparing our guys each week. So we have a lot of belief in our process, and we're just going to day-to-day stick with that routine and then make the right adjustments to come out of the game with calmness. We want to win the prep. We talk about winning the prep. We want to create separation with our preparation. And our guys do a good job with that, both as a coaching staff and as players. We have a mature group who takes a lot of pride in that part of the process. So we're excited for the second time through conference because hopefully we can generate bigger advantages through our preparation. Now with that said, you mentioned the parity. I mean, it's incredible, right? The Montana State's coming off, they played Sac State and Portland State and had 2 losses and, being one of the best teams in the league, but coming off a road sweep. So it's tough. Every game is just going to be a battle. And it's fun because you walk in every day knowing you have a chance to win. You play well, you handle your business, you have a chance to win. But at the same time, if you don't perform to the standard, you're going to lose. And so it makes it for a fun style of basketball. Big Sky's, it's just the way it is this year. There's a ton of parity, like you said. Every team can beat every team, and we need to just continue to take it one day at a time, one game at a time, and hopefully be playing our best basketball in Boise.
And then on that topic of moving from one half of conference play to the next, now like we've said, you've seen everybody once. You're not, and that's a really big mile marker in the season.
Yep.
Looking back before we look ahead. What have you seen? Like, what is some of the biggest growth you've seen? What have you seen change in these guys since, just since Eastern Washington at home?
Yeah, I think the first stretch, Eastern Washington and the Montana schools, we were still learning a lot about ourselves. I thought we held on against Eastern on a big emotional Don Munson night, to get that win. That was a nice way to start conference off. And then we just talked about the Montana schools, the ups and downs that go along with that. We learned some important lessons and got a split against 2 of the top teams in the league. But from there, we've learned very, very important lessons. We went on the road, Idaho State, Weber State. We played 30 minutes of good basketball on the road at Idaho State, but then made some big mistakes in the last 10 minutes to give up that game on the road. And I thought we did a great job responding, adjusting to get a win on the road at Weber State. We learned some very important lessons about shot selection, about scout execution, to get that win on the road at Weber State. Then we came back home and we hit the flu bug, and that's the kind of thing that happens on these journeys. It's kind of like you're driving a car up a hill and, you start swerving off to the left and so you got to redirect, and then you start swerving off to the right and you got to redirect. And that's kind of how our year's been. We made a few mistakes against Idaho State, but we redirected well against Weber. We got sick and, had a few issues here from the Portland State game leading into the second half of Northern Colorado, but we redirected against Northern Arizona. So we just got to continue to do that, make the right adjustments, and hopefully, again, as you continue to drive up that hill, you bring all those lessons with you, so that you're playing your best basketball the second time through conference. So I love our team. I think we have a very mature group. I thought, you talk about guys like Isaiah Brickner. I would add Jack Payne to that list. I thought he was fantastic on Saturday. There's guys that are getting better and playing their best basketball time at the right time of year. And so that's just where we're at as a team. We're continuing to get better, continue to make the right adjustments, and we're going to need to keep doing that here for the last 4 weeks.
The parity you mentioned, just looking at the standings, there's in the loss column 2 games separating spaces 2 through 7 in the conference.
Yeah.
That as a result, when you look at your standing here, you have an opportunity. If you're successful on the road in both spots, you would hand both of them their 4th conference loss while only having 4 yourself. Is the top 2 seed in reach for Pribble men's basketball this year?
I think according to the standings, it is, which is exciting. We're showing growth. But the reality is anybody can beat anybody, and you're still going to have to go down and win 3 or 4 games in Boise in order to get to where we want to get to. And so we really are just taking it one game at a time. We need to prepare for Montana State. We need to prove that we can win tough games on the road, and then we need to do the same thing against Montana. You look at the top teams in the league right now, Portland State. I think we played a little bit shorthanded, but it came down to 1 possession at the end, right? And credit them, they're playing great right now, but we feel comfortable that we can compete with them. Montana State came down to 1 possession at the end. We beat Montana State, we lost to Montana, and then Weber State, who's right in the mix with us, as a team we beat on the road. So there's no teams in this league that we can't play with, right? That's just where we are as a program, and that's good, that's exciting. But we're also not head and shoulders better than anybody in this league. We always have to show up and play our best basketball if we want to win. So it's exciting. Our focus is going to be on Montana State, and then this thing moves quickly, right? So it's going to be a day-to-day process. We have to win the day, stay present, and keep getting better.
Coach, through the first half of conference, you got to keep hearing parity, you got to keep hearing opportunity.
Yeah.
Knowing that your team is within striking distance of getting some top seeding for the Big Sky tournament, and thinking big picture, thinking, all right, we're halfway through conference play, we still have another half to go. What's something that you think you really like about this team right now?
Yeah.
And conversely, what's something that maybe you'd like to see change as we, try to head down the home stretch to Boise?
Yeah. It's a good question. I really like our maturity as a group. I think we have an experienced, mature group that we can really just focus on the basketball part of it. You know, we can focus on the scout preparation and the in-game adjustments, and the guys are all very connected and very focused on the right thing. I think we have a selfless group that cares about each other and that wants to accomplish the goals of this team, not just for themselves, but for their teammates. That's a really important thing at this time of year. If there's something we need to improve, it's about consistency. And I think the way you find consistency is maintaining the edge, right? We can't get complacent. We have an older, experienced group, but we can't allow that to lead to complacency where things just get a bit monotonous at this time of year. We need to keep it fresh. We need to keep the edge, the chip on our shoulder. We're still the underdogs. You know, Idaho hasn't done much these past few years, and we are still a team that has to play that underdog role and prove people wrong, prove what Idaho basketball can really do. So I love our group. It's mature, it's tough, it's selfless, you know, but we can't get complacent.
One thing that you had mentioned, you've mentioned like how mature, how experienced, how developed this group is, almost like far and away different from what could have been said about this team last year. A lot of inexperience, a lot of people getting their first career minutes. What's a big difference for you coaching a team like this year compared to a team who hasn't seen a whole lot of minutes on the court?
Yeah, well, you know, the first year was about building something new. You know, a bunch of guys that had never worn the Vandal jersey together and trying to establish a culture and establish a foundation. And I thought throughout that first year, we learned a lot of important lessons. And then we carried a lot of it over to year two. You know, I think getting that first round bye in year two and beating Portland State in the conference tournament and, you know, coming up with some big games like that, some big moments started to fuel the belief a little bit. Okay, Idaho's moving this thing in the right direction. We're doing what we need to do. And that team was still learning how to win games. Now, you know, injuries are always a big part of this, and unfortunately our front court last year was just decimated with injuries, and that I think didn't allow us to reach our ultimate potential. You know, but we learned a lot of lessons. Me as a coach, our coaching staff, we made some mistakes last year that we learned from and that we got better from. And I think in year three here, we just are a more confident program, right? We have more confident players with the 9 returners, and a lot of the new guys are experienced, have a lot of college games under their belt as well. And then same thing as a coaching staff. We feel we retained basically our whole staff, everybody except for one person. And so now we're more clear in our rules too, and we can have some in-depth conversations that we need to in order to give our guys advantages. So I just think year three, we continue to take steps forward, and that's really all we're focused on. Like the way we're building this program is winning the day, winning the week, right? Getting better each time out. And that's just, there's going to be some ups and downs that come with that, but we weren't looking for the quick fix. We were just looking for continual growth. And I think that's what we've been doing. But again, we can't get complacent. We have to continue to get better. This team is not at its potential yet. It's not at its peak yet. And that's what, you know, motivates me every morning when I wake up. Like, can we get this team to its potential? Again, I love our group. I think we have a very high ceiling, and we still just need to keep pushing forward.
One more question. Thanks, Coach.
Good. Thank you. Go Vandals.
Doug, your attendance is appreciated.